May 23, 1940. Vågsøy, Norway. The North Sea wind cuts through the pre-dawn darkness like a blade. Lieutenant Jack Churchill crouches in a landing craft, salt spray stinging his face, the weight of a Scottish broadsword strapped across his back. Around him, commandos grip their rifles with white knuckles as the boat pitches through black water toward the German-occupied coastline. But Churchill's hands rest on something else entirely, a longbow, strung and ready, with a quiver of arrows lashed to his hip. The men beside him have stopped questioning it. Mad Jack, they call him, though never to his face. The nickname isn't born of disrespect. It's earned through a peculiar brand of fearlessness that defies every convention of modern warfare. While the world has moved to machine guns and grenades, Churchill has stepped backward through centuries, arming himself like a medieval warrior charging into the age of tanks and aircraft. The boat's engine throttles down. Ahead, the Norwegian shore materializes through morning mist. Dark rocks, scattered buildings, the silhouette of German positions. Intelligence reports, the arrow leaves the string with a whisper. 50 yards ahead, the German sentry jerks backward, clutching at the shaft protruding from his chest. He collapses without a sound, disappearing behind the sandbags. For a heartbeat, nothing moves. The fog hangs thick between the British commandos and the village. Then, chaos erupts. German voices shout in alarm. A machine gun opens up, tracers cutting orange lines through the mist. Churchill is already moving, sprinting forward with the bow slung across his shoulder, his right hand reaching back to grip the hilt of his broadsword. Behind him, his men lay down covering fire, rifles cracking in rapid succession. But Churchill doesn't slow. He doesn't take cover. He charges straight at the machine gun nest. The Germans see him coming, a lone figure in British battle dress, sword raised above his head like something out of a medieval tapestry. For a moment, their fire wavers. Confusion, disbelief. It costs them precious seconds. Churchill vaults the sandbag wall, broadsword swinging in a wide arc. The blade catches morning light as it descends. The machine gunner scrambles backward, reaching for his sidearm, but Churchill is already on him. Steel meets flesh. The German crumples. Churchill whirls, sword still in hand, as two more soldiers emerge from a nearby building. They freeze at the sight. The raid on Vågsøy becomes the first of many stories. By the summer of 1941, Churchill's reputation has spread through British commando units and German intelligence reports alike. Officers in London read his after-action summaries with a mixture of admiration and bewilderment. Enemy commanders issue warnings about the British officer who fights with medieval weapons. Soldiers on both sides begin to believe he's invincible or insane, perhaps both. But Churchill doesn't fight for legend. He fights because warfare, stripped to its essence, is about will. The sword, the bow, the bagpipes he insists on playing before each assault, these aren't affectations, they're weapons of psychology, tools to break the enemy's nerve before the first shot is fired. A man charging with a broadsword forces a decision, fight or flee. Most flee. December 27th, 1941. Vågsøy Island, Norway. Churchill stands on the deck of HMS Kenya, bagpipes in hand as the ship approaches the Norwegian coast under cover of darkness. Around him, 600 commandos prepare for one of the largest raids of the war. The target? German positions throughout the island, coastal batteries, fish oil factories fueling the Nazi war machine. Churchill has been assigned to lead a section of 50 men against fortified positions in the town of South Vågsøy. He begins to play. The haunting wail of the March of the Cameron Men drifts across the water. Some commandos grin, others shake their heads. The newer recruits simply stare. But when the landing craft hit the beach 30 minutes later, every man among them feels 10 feet tall. Churchill has that effect. The town erupts in gunfire as the British come ashore. German defenders pour from buildings, machine guns chattering from second story. If you're listening right now, help me prove something wrong. History forgot these people, but their stories were never meant to stay silent. Subscribe and help make sure they're remembered. The mortar team arrives within minutes, hauling their weapon through the snow-covered streets. Churchill directs them to a position behind a stone wall, gesturing toward the warehouse. 3 rounds, high explosive. I want them scattered, confused. Then cease fire immediately. The sergeant major, overseeing the mortar crew, nods, but his eyes betray doubt. And then what, sir? Churchill unslings his broadsword, checking the edge. Then we go in. The first mortar round arcs through the gray Norwegian sky and slams into the warehouse roof. Timber explodes outward. German soldiers scatter from the building's entrance, seeking cover. The second round hits the ground 10 yards from the main door, throwing up frozen earth and shrapnel. Screams cut through the gunfire. The third round punches through a side wall. Then silence. Churchill doesn't wait. He's already moving, sprinting across the open ground with the broadsword held low, his men surging behind him. The Germans, dazed from the mortar barrage, are slow to react. By the time they register the British charge, Churchill is 20 yards out. 15, 10. A German officer appears in the warehouse doorway, Luger pistol raised. Churchill sees the muzzle flash, feels the bullet tear through his uniform sleeve. He doesn't break stride. 5 yards. The officer fires again, misses. Then Churchill is on him, broadsword swinging upward in a brutal arc. The officer staggers backward into the warehouse, clutching his arm. Churchill follows him inside. The interior is chaos, stacked crates, overturned furniture, German soldiers scrambling for weapons in the smoke-filled darkness. Churchill's commandos pour through the entrance behind him, rifles blazing. But Churchill has already locked onto his target, a cluster of Germans attempting to set up a machine gun in the far corner. He charges through the smoke, broadsword leading. The machine gunner swings the weapon toward him, but Churchill is too fast, too close. The blade connects with the gun's tripod, sending it clattering across the floor. The gunner reaches for a rifle. Churchill's boot catches him in the chest, sending him sprawling. Hände hoch, Churchill roars in German. Hands up. The gunner freezes. Behind him, 3 more soldiers slowly raise their arms. Around the warehouse, similar scenes play out. Germans surrendering, weapons clattering to the floor. Churchill's aggressive assault, the shock of... The prisoners are marched toward the beach under guard, a long column of defeated men trudging through snow-covered streets. Churchill watches them go, then turns back toward the warehouse. The building still smolders from the mortar impacts. Inside, British medics tend to wounded, both Allied and German. The professional detachment of combat medics knows no nationality. A young commando, barely 20, approaches Churchill. Blood seeps through a bandage on his shoulder. "Sir, Lieutenant Morrison wants you at the harbor. The Navy's preparing for extraction." Churchill nods, but doesn't move immediately. He's staring at the warehouse, at the bodies being carried out on stretchers. 3 of his men won't be going home. The broadsword, for all its psychological power, couldn't prevent that. Victory always carries a ledger, and today's numbers are written in blood. "Sir?" Churchill snaps back to the present. "Right, let's move." The harbor is controlled chaos. Landing craft bob in the icy water as commandos load equipment and prisoners. Naval gunfire from HMS Kenya pounds German positions further inland, covering the withdrawal. Churchill makes his way to the command post, a requisitioned fishing shack, where Lieutenant Morrison huddles over a radio. Morrison looks up. "Ma Jack, heard you took the warehouse with a bloody sword." "The sword helped, the mortars did most of the work." 42 prisoners. High command is going to love this." Morrison grins, then his expression darkens. "But we lost Jenkins, Harper, and young Donnelly." Churchill's jaw tightens. "I know. Was it worth it?" The question hangs in the salt air. Churchill thinks of the fish oil factories burning behind them, the German coastal batteries silenced, the intelligence documents seized from the warehouse. Strategic objectives achieved, but 3 men dead. The war grinds on. Norway fades into memory, replaced by new theaters, new battles. By 1943, Churchill has been promoted to lieutenant colonel and given command of a commando force bound for the Mediterranean. The Allied invasion of Sicily looms. Churchill's reputation has preceded him. German intelligence files now contain multiple reports of the officer with the sword, though some commanders dismiss these accounts as British propaganda designed to unsettle troops. They're about to learn otherwise. July 10th, 1943. Catania, Sicily. Churchill crouches in an olive grove 2 miles from the Italian coastline. Around him, 200 commandos check weapons and synchronize watches. The objective? A heavily fortified German observation post overlooking the invasion beaches. Intelligence estimates 40 to 50 defenders, entrenched positions, excellent fields of fire. The post must be taken before dawn, before the main landings begin. Churchill has the broadsword, he has his bagpipes, and he has a plan that would make conventional officers blanch. At 0300 hours, he stands and begins to play. The sound drifts through the olive trees, alien and haunting in the Mediterranean night. German sentries 2 miles away pause, heads turning toward the sound. What is that? Confused radio chatter crackles between positions. The defenders are already off balance. Churchill finishes the tune, slings the bagpipes, and draws his sword. "Gentlemen," he addresses his commandos, "we're going to walk right up to their front door. When they see us coming, they'll think we're insane. They'll hesitate. That's when we strike." The march begins. Not a careful tactical advance, a deliberate, measured walk directly toward the German positions. Churchill at the front, broadsword resting on his shoulder, his men spread in a loop. The observation post falls within 20 minutes. Churchill's commandos sweep through trenches and bunkers, meeting scattered resistance. The German defenders, already rattled by the unorthodox assault, collapse into disorganized retreat. Those who don't flee surrender in clusters. 5 here, 7 there, hands raised against the darkness. Churchill stands atop the main bunker as dawn breaks over Sicily, watching his men secure the position. Below, German prisoners sit in orderly rows, guarded by commandos. He counts them, 53, more than intelligence estimated, all captured with minimal British casualties, 2 wounded, none dead. But the war isn't finished with Jack Churchill. September 1943, Salerno, Italy. The Allied invasion has ground into brutal house-to-house fighting. Churchill's commandos are tasked with capturing a cluster of stone farmhouses that German infantry have converted into a fortress. Machine gun nests in every window, mortar teams in the courtyards, a killing ground for anyone approaching across open fields. Churchill plans his assault from a drainage ditch 300 yards out. Artillery pounds the farmhouses, but the Germans are dug in deep, weathering the barrage. When the shelling stops, they'll emerge and cut down any advance. Unless that advance comes before the shelling stops. Churchill makes the call. We go now, in the smoke and confusion. His second-in-command stares. "Sir, our own artillery will provide the best cover we'll ever have. Move." They advance through the bombardment, shells screaming overhead, explosions shaking the earth. Madness. Absolute madness. But the Germans aren't watching for an assault during friendly fire. Churchill's force crosses half the distance before the artillery lifts. Then they're spotted. Machine guns open up from the farmhouse windows. Churchill's commandos take cover behind low stone walls, returning fire. 2 men go down, then 3. The advance stalls. Churchill doesn't hesitate. He rises from cover, broadsword in hand, and charges directly at the nearest farmhouse. Bullets snap past him. One tugs at his uniform. Another ricochets off stone inches from his head. The breakout is violence distilled to its purest form. Churchill kicks open the east door and explodes into the German-held corridor, broadsword leading. Shock and speed, the only advantages they have. A German soldier raises his rifle. Churchill's blade cuts through the air. The man falls. Another appears. Churchill's pistol barks twice. His commandos pour through behind him, firing, moving, creating chaos in the tight confines. Germans scramble to respond, but Churchill's force is a wedge of pure aggression, driving through the farmhouse toward the exit. They burst out into daylight, into a courtyard filled with stunned enemy soldiers. No time to think. Churchill charges the nearest group and his men follow. The Germans break. Some flee, others throw down their weapons. The psychological impact, the sheer audacity, shatters their cohesion. Within minutes, the courtyard is theirs. But the cost is steep. Churchill counts his men, 8 still standing from the original 15. The others are dead or wounded, left behind in the farmhouse. He feels each loss like a physical weight, but there's no time to grieve. German reinforcements are already moving toward their position. Fall back to Allied lines, Churchill orders. Move. They withdraw under fire, carrying their wounded, leaving their dead. Churchill is the last to go, broadsword still in hand, covering the retreat. A German officer appears at a window, leveling a Luger. Churchill meets his eyes. For a moment, they simply stare at each other, 2 warriors across the insanity of war. Then the German lowers his pistol and steps back into the shadows. Even enemies recognize something worthy of respect. May 1945. Germany surrenders. The war in Europe ends. Jack Churchill survives. Against